Okay, so thank you very much. It's my third time here in Tokyo. It's so great. I'm so happy to be back, and I'm impressed about the organization and the technical setup. It's so great. So thank you very much. Hello, and so being from Germany, I would like to say good morning to this quick discussion about how to scale up in large setups. So the agenda for today is as follows. I would quickly set the stage for scaling and look back some years since 2009 or even more to the past to talk about what DevOps nowadays is in 2025. Then I would like to proceed to the what I call DevOps continuum. So it's my idea how to talk about DevOps, how to scale DevOps. Then finally, I would like to discuss some specific scaling opportunities and specifically SRE in relation to DevOps, of course. Okay, so let me introduce you my virtual co-speaker. I don't have a name yet, so if you have an idea. He asked some tough questions in between, and he starts with the question, what actually is DevOps? What we learned today and even yesterday, everybody has a different perspective on DevOps. That's great. There's not a one canonical definition. Everybody here or in teams, in organizations has a view on DevOps depending on his or her role, skills, and that's normal, right? So if you have a team with maybe 5 team members and you have 6 DevOps definitions, that sounds a bit crazy, but you should start and reflect about what DevOps is in your specific context and come up with one definition for your local context. I would like to ask you about what you think or what's your most prominent or most valuable DevOps book, or do you have any superstars, DevOps superstars in mind? So there are some fancy DevOps books all around nowadays. Starting back in 2009, it was a bit different, right? But nowadays, there are so many good books, and if you have to decide, Christmas is soon. I want to have 3 books or even 1 book about DevOps. I would like to suggest this one. The first one is Adam Smith. Unfortunately, he's already dead for some centuries, but he worked, he's a Scottish scientist working on division of labor. So what I think in my DevOps definition and perspective, it's still very valid, what he suggested as theories. And we will zoom into this a bit later. So that's maybe a very good starter also from a timing perspective, right? So 1790 he died, unfortunately. The second one is Mr. Deming. Who knows Mr. Deming? Also very interesting and a crucial contribution to this solution domain called DevOps, because some years back, even before the so-called DevOps movement started, he identified that it's not that good to have silos in organizations, and he had some ideas how to cope with those silos. So this is also a very good starter. Any idea for a third book? So maybe this one. It's also interesting for a lot of different reasons. So first of all, goals. We will talk about it later, holistic goals. Theory of constraints. So Mr. Goldrat also contributed a lot of, you know him, I guess, important aspects which influence the DevOps movement indirectly or even directly. Okay, you are fine with this set, with this area of books and superstars. Maybe you have expected some more recent persons, but I think that's a good starting point. So maybe that's a good DevOps package. Okay. Having said that, let's zoom into some building blocks and aspects of DevOps, right? You've learned maybe today and yesterday it's a huge domain with a lot of different aspects. I would emphasize some which are important from my perspective and also which are some sort of building blocks for scaling. Commodity DevOps, right? Looking back, a lot has happened, cultural things, platform engineering, silos, it started with silos, right? So a lot of things happened, including the timeless discussion about what is a DevOps engineer. There are some DevOps openings, companies looking for DevOps experts, DevOps engineers. On the other side, we have some shared models, T-shaped models, for example, where team members know also ops stuff or dev stuffs and share their skills and knowledge specific to a task. We also had the last decades some very important contributions regarding aspects like culture, right? Automation, lean, measurement, sharing, calms in short, also very important, very good building block and contribution, what DevOps may mean, and emphasizing, for example, it's important to have culture and open-minded approaches. More details on this a bit later. Nowadays, more than back some years, we have very often the discussion about DevOps and tools. Many tool vendors suggest that they have a single tool and a big platform, which once used will solve everything and will implement your DevOps, right? And to scale DevOps, I'm a bit skeptical. I'm more the guy who prefers to connect and orchestrate best of breed tools given for a specific task, for example, pipelining, build management, and all that stuff, monitoring, and just to orchestrate and glue them together to integrated tool chains, right? To automate and to develop and to deliver your product. That leads us to the discussion of team types, right? T-shaped model, silos. So guys in the past suggested to have a different structure of teams, also very important for scaling. And also here a quick pointer to this stream. Very important is to, what I said already, to define what your context is and what your DevOps definition is, right? So it's a bit, yeah, it can end very scary if you have, you know, many different words and terms used in your team and your project for the single task. So you should sort it and think about what is CI, CD, what is DevOps, right? So DevOps, the last mile included and all that stuff. You should zoom into this part and yeah, get aware of those pitfalls. So after rushing over these monuments of 16 years of DevOps movement, I now proceed to what DevOps means from my perspective. So in one single slide, that's also a meta message, sort of. Also with DevOps, we all work agile, but we still should stick to good practices. For example, agile project management, right? So you have some people, you have hopefully some goals, you have some time constraints, and you have a context, very important, the context, right? So it's about people, skills, experience, and mindset. That's very important, the mindset, and the goals, and the time. What does it mean in more detail? I would like to suggest the following definition. So DevOps is a set of practices continuously improved for collaboration between different functions in companies to develop as well as deliver a product toward continuous delivery of valuable outcome for customers, right? So this is a short sentence, and I think it's packed with different very important aspects. Let me emphasize some of them. So it's an area, it's a list of practices. It's not just a fire and forget or one moment action. It's continuously improving. It's about collaboration, right? It's not about silos and social vacuums. It is to develop as well as deliver a product. It sounds simple, but very often we have not really the mindset in teams that it's about delivery on target environments for usage by users, by customers. That's very important, right? And it's also relates to the product-oriented development. Let's now proceed to specific factors influencing the DevOps implementation. So the question from my co-speaker already reflects on there are some factors, right? What I think maps to DevOps and to how to scale it is that DevOps is a mesh of actually 7 factors and its specific implementations in a given context, right? So the sum is actually your specific DevOps implementation. It's a good scaling approach, right? So I would like to split those factors in 2 groups. So the outer environment and the inner environment. The outer environment in blue, the outer ring, are the factors which impacts your team from the outside, right? It's a market type, consumer, product, industry product type, standards from your organization, what your organization says, how you have to slice your work, division of work, or for example, security standards. So standards and policies which impact your team. And also the solution space, right? Part of the digital evolution, what your team can facilitate to work and to implement the product to reach the goals. And the inner environment does include, for example, the practices. How do you work? Which practices do you use? The success criteria of your team. What is the goal? Very important. Sounds simple, but it's often not that simple. And how you deal with changes. That's extremely important. So what you may directly see is that we don't have a distinct area of factors and implementations, which we can also call flavors, but we have a broad range of different implementations, right? So example, dealing with change, we have protect the past, aversion, or we have on the other opposite side, we have really an open experimentation culture, probe the future. Because openness for change is so crucial, I would like to suggest this factor to be a so-called dynamic capability, right? So this is a factor and a capability of your team able to transform the current DevOps implementation into a new one, right? So that's only possible with an open mindset and with this dynamic capability, right? So just applying practices, CI, CD, monitoring, it's an important factor, but it's not sufficient to fundamentally transform your entire DevOps implementation into a new one. We can also map the factor, specifically the organizational standards, division of labor, right, to this map. So we have a classic approach on the top left, with tightly coupled teams. So it's more the classic agile approach. We have a highly agile Scrum team, for example, and a distinct business department. This is pretty often the case. Or we have also maybe a fused team, which we may name a pure DevOps on the top right? So we have some different ways how to slice your work and how to assign the work across actors. And I don't want to say that this approach is better than a different approach, because this is often the case that people say, I want to strive for pure DevOps because it's better. I think it's not about maturity, it's about how to find the best context for your team. So the sum of the 7 factors, right? So maybe in your specific context, with your goals and standards, it's the best solution to have a process-rich division of labor with loosely coupled teams. We can also shed light on the DevOps funnel. It's a different illustration, how your team acts in the overall setup of your organization. You have a top-down view and a bottom-up view. And actually, what I said already, if you have company goals and practices which impact how your team has to work, it influences your DevOps implementation. Same inside your team, if you have invented some practices or you apply practices, that's part of your local set of practices. Okay. Let's proceed to talking about scaling DevOps. You may have recognized that all aspects and emphasizing those pieces do contribute to scaling DevOps, right? But now let's explicitly talk about how to scale up DevOps in big setups. So what is big? Some teams, some dev teams, distinct department, security department, maybe ops involved, many products, 100 products. That's maybe big. And the first guidance I would like to share is that you should at least try to automate and to integrate all pieces which make up your product consistently, right? What makes up the product in a technical and functional way to make it a consistent release? You should include all different aspects in your pipelines, version control, binaries, all that stuff, right? Not just one single piece, not just the Java application, but everything, database, elements, and everything. And also automate the delivery chain to production on all possible target environments, on-premise, cloud, edge systems, all that stuff, right? That's possible technically today, so you should at least try that. Then the next recipe maybe sounds a bit crazy, but okay, the disclaimer was at the start, we all are agile and work aligns with DevOps, right? But what I think, at least maybe even in smaller setups, but at least in bigger setups, architecture is very important in documentation, right? So document what pieces are necessary to document. Hopefully, in the best case, the documentation should be executable, but you should document, right? So often there is, you know, the message, I don't want to document, or I don't need to, because it's clear and we are working agile. And also architecture, there should be some, I don't want to say there is a single enterprise architect, which is sitting somewhere, and no, it should be practical and product orientated, but you should think about the target architecture practically, right? And document it. Goals are also very important. It's a good vehicle for scaling. Sounds a bit scary maybe, but consider again the value stream map, right? So if you want to scale, I mean the scaling from the product perspective, not just from personal developer perspective, right? If I sit there on my seat and how can I scale? No, it's how the team can scale, and how can I scale my DevOps implementation to improve my work according to the DevOps definition I've provided. So think about holistic goals, right? Not just velocity of a Scrum team B, which just provides one maybe important piece of the overall product. Again, think about Mr. Gantrat and the holistic goals. There are always bottlenecks. It's normal. You should identify them, talk about them, and get rid of them, right? Just to have the time to tackle the next one. That's very important. So talking about goals and holistic goals, we are approaching the topic from the end, right? From the last mile, from the product, from the user. So this is where the concept of delivery performance joins the game. You most probably know the DORA matrix, right? So it's just exactly this. It's we have 4 different success factors in 2 pairs, right? So more the classic development perspective, velocity, and on the other side, also including the ops perspective, looking at this same topic from the operational side, with change failure rates and time to restore and all that stuff. So the entire set of all 4 concepts make up the success in this case, right? The goal. But please keep in mind that it's not a technical, it's often a pitfall, a technical data point to be monitored. You can monitor it, but it's a team goal, right? That's very important. Site reliability engineering is actually Google's approach to service management. It's it's delivery performance applied, right? It's a way how to structure DevOps and how to balance those 2 pairs of velocity and stability. So if it's interesting for you and maybe new, then it's a good chance later on to consult those freely available books provided by Google. Google is a good hint. The next pitfall. So if you look for some hints and guidance to balance what I said, the success criteria and how to structure DevOps and scale DevOps, check it out, right? However, not seldomly people think, okay, sounds good, SRE, now I implement it. Although it it's not the best solution for my setup, right? So maybe, you know, stuff one says we are Google, we must now implement SRE, and the person, the colleague says, for Google it was or is a very good solution, but we don't have that, right? It's not a good fit. Okay, let's summarize some key recipes and principles which are provided by SRE in relation to DevOps. So first, it's what I said, delivery performance applied, right? It's about holistic goals, how to balance different building blocks. Second, it's engineering focused. So the developers work on solutions. We have some, what I said, division of work. So depending on who you ask, people may claim, okay, SRE and ops engineers are the same. So if you zoom in and think about the content, maybe you come to the same conclusion. It's about acting data informed and goal driven. Sounds simple, but it's really crucial, right? So data informed, just act driven by data, which, for example, are gathered and provided by your monitoring. That's very crucial, and goal driven, right? Okay, experimentation and playgrounds are fine if it's okay for the team and the goals. However, you should define the goal and how specific work contributes to this goal. And you should find and process up to appropriate metrics, right? So because you have a huge monitoring stack and gather a lot of data points, that's fine, but you know, maybe it does not contribute to the goal. So you should aggregate the metrics and find the correct metrics in your specific context. The next important aspect is that you should consider sort of production readiness, right? So next pitfall, sometimes teams think, okay, we are agile, we are all devs and engineers, and it's a continuous morphing of development to production, which may lead to the phenomenon that this team does some firefighting on higher stages. That's not the best solution, right? So you should have some stages and defined maturities for the product, paved roads, and that's the reason Google has come up with things like launch readiness reviews and handoff readiness reviews, just to define and to talk about those aspects which makes up production readiness. Then the next item in my list is that we should also, with Agile and DevOps, have some change management, right? So very hyper agile teams may think, what's change management? Nowadays, often it is implicit part of the solution based on the tooling, change management with appropriate tools, Ansible, Puppet, just to name some few, just to identify and to version the items which you want to bring out to higher environments. That's also part of change management. And the next one is capacity management. Here we don't talk about the capacity of persons or the team, right? That's not the case. Rather, we want to think about sizing. So which resources are needed to achieve the goals from a technical perspective? It's also very important, right? And always it's a pitfall. If devs are looking at higher environments, they are often wondering what's happening there. The next very important building block is observability, so monitoring, tracing, logging, just to provide a sense of how the product works, to gather the data and to improve. That's very important. And of course, the division of work. So maybe poor DevOps or strict division, but should be defined somehow, right? So poor DevOps, if you have a team where nobody has a clue what's going on, and everybody states, okay, we are DevOps and Agile, and everybody does work on everything. That's also some sort of poor DevOps, but not what leads to the best result. Okay, so if you have reached the preconditions, for example, meaning good stack of observability, defining and tracking and monitoring the best data points for your specific context and all that stuff, you can maybe think about doing the next step. Just to think about some service level objectives. So what's the requirement the product must meet on a production system, for example. Then you can come up with some error budgets, and just to balance the work in your team, right? So do you have the time to work on functionality and on velocity to bring out new functions, or do you have to focus now on stability, right? And what you see if you have a classic big organization, not Google, with a specific product type and market type, and it's totally different to Google, it's maybe a waste of time to think about SLOs, right? Error budgets. Okay, now let's just provide some more hints on scaling. So if you have a lot of specific teams, component teams as part of your product team, and or what I already said, different departments, a platform team, and so forth. You may want to try to link those working streams together, right? So every team probably has some backlogs and some specific local processes and tooling with Scrum and Kanban backlogs. But you should think about to pull out some DevOps related specific topics which are important and to visualize them on a distinct maybe wiki page, right? So you may have this as a result, that you have some tables and you see some very important working streams. For example, the pipelining is very important and in progress for team A. And you see that also team B has some pipeline issues or platform questions and challenges. And also their monitoring is a daily question because it does not work or there is no monitoring at all. You may make it visible and connect those pieces and work on a paved road, right? Just to bring out a road for all involved actors from start to the end and glue those pieces together, right? So every team, what I said, you may remember, has a context and goals. So it's not typically not the goal of a platform team just to deliver functionality and be responsible for it. It's a product team, right? So you may want to orchestrate all those different pieces, connect them, and set up a paved road, and also accelerate the communication, because it's the most important part. It's about communication, right? So just to have some pieces to talk about, 1-2 lines, put all people in a room and talk about it. Sometimes it helps to talk about it. In a second step, you could consider to bring together all those domain-specific aspects to a different group, to a different table, what I said, right? In this case, monitoring. So there's maybe a DevOps team, product teams, platform teams, security teams, and all those have a different perspective. So on a meta level, also here, also as DevOps, please consider good old approaches, for example, project management approaches, like setting up responsibility assignment metrics, right? Just who is responsible for what. So it's also a pitfall, right? That we have to think about. No, it's not a big family and a community. You should think about how you assign and slice your work. That's very important to scale up. And who is responsible and who should be informed and consulted, right? But is not responsible, right? So that's very important. But it does not mean that people from the different teams do not help each other, right? So if you have a product team and a product expert, a developer in the team who is really eager to work with the platform and is really engaged and skilled, maybe he can contribute to the platform itself, right? So he can work also for defined pieces for the platform team in this case. Meaning that you have maybe a pool of experts, SRE or a DevOps team, which can help out where it is needed, right? So maybe you have a emerging product where you put 2-3 persons, experts into this to build up observability, the pipeline, and all that stuff. And if the product is major, they can be removed, pulled, sounds a bit technical, and waiting for new work in different products or in the platform team or in other teams where they can contribute, right, to share their skills and contribute there. Also great idea how to scale, and it works. Okay, now let's conclude. After this huge ride across the DevOps history first, right? So the last 16 years with some emphasis on how to scale, then scaling recipes, providing some hints and anchor points for later on, right? You can zoom in and check it out in detail. But let's again step back one step and think about the main nuggets. So the main takeaways I would like to share here. So the first one is, of course, if it's aligned with your context. First one is think outside the box, right? With DevOps. Then it's about context. I hope it's a good idea what I've provided for you, how to scale the context, specific parts, and you can think about it. It's about context. Then talk to each other. Sounds also a bit simple and scary, but sometimes that's indeed the missing piece. Be patient. It may take time, right? I don't think it's what I said. DevOps implementations is not about maturity. However, on a different level, how to implement it, to define it and scale it, it may take time, and it's a process. So be patient, and you need, of course, commitment from you yourself, from the team, from the decision makers, right? That it's a process and that everybody shares the same goals. And DevOps is everywhere. So it's after 16 years, it's not a buzzword anymore. However, it's, everybody uses it, and many of them name it DevOps, right? There are, what I said, SRE and platform engineering and some distinct sub-communities. However, DevOps is really the umbrella term, and it sounds intuitive, right? So development operations, maybe there are some teams which in big organizations, it does not, nobody cares if they develop something and it's not provided to the user. Maybe it doesn't cares, I don't know. But typically you have a dev and ops part, right? But not everybody is Google. It sounds also simple, but it relates to the context. And yeah. So finally, it's our dynamic capability, so continuous learning, right? It's the ability to learn, but also that you are open-minded and happy to contribute to a bigger picture, right? So that's really important. So if you have, if you are the person, the lucky person who hires people, think about that's my final recommendation, not too many technical questions, rather how she would solve it, and that he or she could contribute to the team and is eager to emphasize and to share the work. It's really very important and maybe a good key point for DevOps at all. So yeah, thank you very much.
We have a few minutes for if you have any questions.
You talked about architecture and documentation during the talk, and I was wondering, have you found in your research and in your experience that architecture has a material impact on the success of DevOps? So, if we talk about a monolith versus microservices or native software versus containerization, does any of that have an impact on the effectiveness of DevOps in an organization?
I think that's a very good question. If you ask for specific scientific evidence, I have to read literature about it. Maybe yes, most probably yes. In this specific part here for my session, this is based on practitioner experience. That it's so I'm only supporting big organizations for nowadays 20 years, and that's some sort of experience that I see that if you don't have a rigor architecture, it leads to failures most probably in sales documentation, but it depends on your context, right, and the specific case, of course. So being agile, the continuum, just writing a lot of books and documentations, it must be practical and usable, right? And if you have, what I said, documentation which is executable, even better, right? So it must fill out a gap and must provide a value.
Okay.
Does it help?
Thanks.
We have time for about one more question. Anyone? All right. Okay. Then thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
The next program will start from 4 p.m. Thank you very much.